VinFuture Prize, a new global science and technology prize for humanity from Vietnam. One VinFuture Grand Prize of $3 million. 3 additional special VinFuture prizes valued at $500,000 each. VinFuture Prize honors science and technology work that creates or has a high potential to create meaningful change in the everyday lives of millions of people. Join us to make a change for a better future.
Greetings everyone, esteemed colleagues joining us from all over the world. On behalf of the VinFuture Foundation, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the audience of the second InnovaTalk webinar of 2025. My name is VinFuture and it's my pleasure to be your moderator for today. And now, we'll turn our attentions to one of the most powerful forces shaping our world nowadays, artificial intelligence. As AI becomes increasingly integrated into our daily lives and decision-making process, it brings both immense opportunities and also significant responsibilities. Ensuring AI is developed and applied in a way that is ethical, inclusive, and equitable is more urgent than ever. And to delve into this timely and vital issues, the VinFuture Foundation is proud to co-host the InnovaTalk webinar on AI Without Borders, Ethics and Technologies. Before we begin, I would like to express our sincerest gratitude to UNESCO for partnering with us on these important occasions. Their commitment to ethical considerations in science and technology makes them an invaluable partner for today's discussions. Through these collaborations, we aim to highlight how AI can serve all communities, especially those in developing regions. And now, in this InnovaTalk webinar, we are pleased to introduce Professor Soumitra Dutta, member of the VinFuture Prize Council, Peter Morris, Dean of the Saïd Business School at the University of Oxford, who will serve as the chair of today's webinar. Joining him on the panel are 2 distinguished experts in the field of AI, Mr. Jose Antonio Guridi, AI consultant for UNESCO and co-founder at Foresight Consulting. Mr. Adya Danaditya, AI consultant for UNESCO and group product manager at INA Digital Edu, Indonesian Ministry of Education. And finally, we are glad to welcome our special guest, Associate Professor Phi Le Nguyen, Acting Director of the Institute for AI Innovations and Societal Impact at Hanoi University of Science and Technology. And to open today's discussions, we would like to invite Dr. Thái Hà Lê, Managing Director of the VinFuture Foundation, to deliver the opening remarks and share the visions behind these timely conversations on AI and ethics.
Very good day to everyone. My name is Thái Hà and I'm the Managing Director of the VinFuture Foundation, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to this InnovaTalk webinar, AI Without Borders, Ethics and Technology, co-hosted by the UNESCO office in Vietnam and the VinFuture Foundation. As you know, artificial intelligence continues to shape our world in profound ways. It is vital that we come together to reflect on how these technologies can be developed and deployed ethically, inclusively, and equitably, especially in the context of Global South. So we are very delighted to be working alongside UNESCO, and I would like to warmly acknowledge Mr. Jonathan Baker, UNESCO representative to Vietnam, for his leadership and support in bringing this important conversation to life. We also honored to be joined by an exceptional group of speakers and panelists this evening. It's a very special thank you to Professor Soumitra Dutta, the chair of today's session, and to our distinguished speaker for sharing their expertise and perspective from across the globe. And at VinFuture, we believe that science and technology must be guided by a sense of shared responsibility, one that transcends borders and prioritizes the well-being of all communities. And thank you once again for being here with us today, and I look forward to a fruitful and thoughtful, inspiring discussion. Thank you very much. V, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Thái Hà Lê. And now, following the sharings from the VinFuture Foundation side, we are now honored to hear from Mr. Jonathan Wallace Baker, the representative of UNESCO in Vietnam, who will speak on UNESCO missions and its crucial role in advocating for the ethical use of AI.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good evening and good afternoon, good morning to everyone. On behalf of UNESCO, it's really a pleasure for me to welcome you to this webinar. I want to extend, first of all, my thanks to the VinFuture Foundation for partnering with UNESCO to organize this event on such a timely and important topic. I also want to thank our chair, Professor Soumitra Dutta, who will be guiding us today, and our UNESCO experts and all participants. I'm really very much looking forward to this important discussion. UNESCO, the organization I represent here in Vietnam, is at the forefront of international efforts to build ethical, responsible, and inclusive AI frameworks worldwide. In November of 2021, UNESCO produced the first ever global standard on AI ethics, the Recommendation on the Ethics of Artificial Intelligence. And we're working with governments from over 50 countries to ensure its effective implementation, notably through the Readiness Assessment Methodology, RAM, a tool to assess the country's capacity to develop ethical AI. And I'm delighted, of course, that Vietnam is one of these 50 countries. The RAM process in Vietnam is ongoing, and we hope to invite the VinFuture Foundation, other members of the Vin Group's ecosystem, and all of you, our experts and AI enthusiasts, to join us in this endeavor and to work with us and with Vietnam to implement the recommendations that will come out of the RAM report. So in today's webinar, we'll have the opportunity to listen to experts who've worked with UNESCO on RAM in multiple countries and regions. And I'd like to thank them for being here with us tonight. And they will share with us their experiences and lessons learned from helping UNESCO conduct the AI readiness assessments and discuss what these insights could mean for Vietnam. And we'll also have the chance to listen to Professor Phi Le Nguyen, a renowned expert on AI from Vietnam, with whom UNESCO has worked with before, notably in 2021 on a seminar on the UNESCO recommendation. And so we count on your valuable insights as well and contributions during the consultation process for the RAM report. And UNESCO has been working closely with the Ministry of Science and Technology and leading Vietnamese experts on the RAM process these past months, and we'll have our first consultation workshop on the initial findings of this assessment on the 21st of May. So this webinar is really very timely and a great opportunity to gather more insights on this important topic for Vietnam and the world. So I'd like to thank you again, and I look forward to this exchange today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. And of course, I would love to hear more sharings from our UNESCO expert in the next part. But now, to set the stage for our conversations, let's watch a brief trailer that offers an overview of what we'll be discussing today.
As artificial intelligence becomes increasingly embedded in everyday life, influencing decision-making processes globally, it is more important than ever to ensure its ethical, inclusive, and equitable development and deployment. To explore how AI can serve the needs of all communities, the VinFuture Foundation is collaborating with UNESCO to present the in-depth InnovaTalk webinar. This session brings together leading voices to examine the unique opportunities and challenges that AI presents for countries in the Global South. The webinar is chaired by Professor Soumitra Dutta, member of the VinFuture Prize Council, Peter Moores, Dean of the Saïd Business School at the University of Oxford, United Kingdom. Professor Dutta has spent more than 3 decades in leading business schools across the Atlantic, where he has conducted extensive research and consulted with global firms on developing effective technology and innovation strategies. Joining him on the panel are 2 distinguished speakers. Mr. Jose Antonio Guridi is the co-founder of Foresight Consulting and an AI consultant for UNESCO, where he leads artificial intelligence readiness assessments and provides policy advisory support in Chile, the Dominican Republic, and Cuba. With a strong background in engineering and public policy, he led the creation of the Chilean AI policy and the Future and Social Adoption of Technology Unit. Another distinguished speaker is Mr. Adya Danaditya, AI consultant for UNESCO based in Jakarta, Indonesia, where he contributes to ethical AI readiness assessments under UNESCO's AI Ethics Expert Without Borders network. He has served as an expert and advisor for the deployment of the readiness assessment methodology in Indonesia, Laos, PDR, and other Southeast Asian countries. Joining the discussion is a special guest from Vietnamese scientific community, Associate Professor Phi Le Nguyen. She currently serves as the acting director of the Institute for AI Innovation and Societal Impact, and holds the position of Associate Professor at the School of Information and Communication Technology, Hanoi University of Science and Technology, Vietnam. By focusing on Southeast Asia and Latin America, this webinar aims to explore how AI can be shaped to respect cultural diversity and respond to region-specific needs. Join us for the InnovaTalk webinar, AI Without Borders, Ethics and Technology.
And without further delay, let's welcome our esteemed chair for today's webinar, Professor Soumitra Dutta. Professor Dutta is the Peter Morris Dean at the Saïd Business School at the University of Oxford and a member of the VinFuture Prize Council. Please join me in giving him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Vi, for your kind words of introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all attendees who are joining this webinar, I think on a very, very important topic. I think it's very obvious and very clear to everyone that we are living in an age of AI. And certainly the age of AI is much more than just an age of technology. Clearly, technology is the key driver behind the age of AI. But really, in many ways, it is, I would say, a radical transformation potentially of the way we do business, the way we live in society, and the way we address some of the key challenges that we're facing in the world today. Now, we'll have some very in-depth presentation from expert speakers later on, and I will let them, in fact, talk about many of the details about how AI is being applied in various regional contexts. But let me give you some high-level one or two perspectives in terms of some of the key questions that I think we'll have to address as we go forward. So the first issue is of inclusivity and of inequality or equality, the way you want to put it. I think if you look at the world as a whole, the level of inequality in the world has increased pretty much globally in the last 30, 40 years. So a big question mark that I think is there in everyone's mind is, what are some of the drivers that's driving this rise in inequality? Clearly, some of it is due to policies and the way, for example, different countries have chosen to implement policies at the government level. But a large reason of it also is the way technology has actually impacted productivity in organizations, and the way technology actually has helped some organizations, some countries to create more wealth than others. And I would say that based on my own research, I have been conducting research on network readiness. I produced the Network Readiness Index over the last 22 years. What we have seen is that technology actually is a multiplier. So it multiplies the assets, the strengths, and the weaknesses you have. And as a result of that, what happens is it, in fact, adds to the division in society. Now, that might seem a little counterintuitive, but let me explain in very simple terms why that happens. So at one level, for example, people think that, well, today the digital divide actually has reduced. Why? Because a lot of people have access to the mobile phone. Today, for example, a lot of people have access to some basic AI services, whether it's using the mobile apps or other kinds of LLM technologies they might have on the laptop or on the mobile phones. But if you look at the actual value creation of technology, what you start seeing is that some parts of a country, typically the richer parts, or some countries, typically the richer countries, tend to create more value successfully technology than others who are typically poorer or less qualified in some skills area. Why is that? Because usually people who are richer, or societies that are richer, typically have better technology, better networks, more assets, and higher skills. And the combination of that creates higher value for them as compared to, let's say, less developed economies or poorer people or even rural regions in a country where you have some technology, not the best, some technology, where you have some skills, not the most advanced skills, and you have some assets and some resources, but not the same as in the rich countries or the more affluent parts of society. And as a result, they're able to create value, but not as much value as some others are able to create. So as a result, what happens is technology just multiplies the amount of difference that actually is there in the value creation by different segments of society. And in many ways, technology is, sort of increasing the pace of this growing inequality in the world. So my concern that I have is as AI, in fact, becomes an even bigger part of our world, if we do not actually have a more consistent and a more uniform, let's say, adoption and investments in AI around the world, we might actually lead to a situation where we have increasing global divides, increasing sort of dispersion between the rich and the poor, increasing divides between the rich countries and the poor countries. And that is not necessarily a good thing to actually look forward to. So the first concern that I have, and the first issue that I think is important in AI without borders, is this whole issue of equality, inclusivity. And I don't think that just because AI is today available and everyone has a mobile phone, we can just be happy and rest assured that this will be not a problem or this will in fact decrease in the future. In fact, the research shows that it'll probably increase in the future, and we have to actually take steps to at least correct for that. The second concern that I want to raise, the second issue that I want to bring about for discussion really is this notion of what can a country or region do with AI. So for that, I like to think in terms of three buckets. So there is what I would term as the creation of technology, whereas actually the technical skills, the qualifications, and the resource and the computational power required to create new algorithms, new AI systems, and so on. The creation bucket is very important. The second bucket is regulation, which actually is typically governments or some other organizational bodies deciding what kind of regulations are put in place for using technology, using AI in this case. And the third bucket is adoption, where actual organizations, companies, governments, and so on, end up adopting AI, adopting technology for their own purposes. So you look at these three buckets of creation, regulation, and adoption. Today, the world is actually quite divided. In the creation buckets, the number of countries that are actually creating the frontiers of technology is very small. I would argue it's less than 10. And you can actually count the number of countries on both hands. So a very small set of countries are actually creating the technology. Yes, regulation, everyone is trying to regulate it. The EU certainly is at the frontiers of it. The EU has produced some of the most comprehensive, the most in-depth sort of regulatory practices around AI. But the big question that is there in my mind is that how effective are the regulations if you don't actually control the creation of technology? And the good example is the whole thing is social media. You look at social media, there are all kinds of negative impacts in the way, for example, search firms or social media firms use technology or apply technology. They often sort of, I would say, break some of the norms or at least push the boundaries of the norms in regulation in many countries. They sometimes get fined, but the reality is that the technology is so complicated and so complex and moving to the fast pace that governments and regulators don't really have the capacity to actually understand what is happening in the technology, the capacity to actually keep track of the changes in technology required and adjust the regulations appropriately. So I have a lot of serious concerns that regulation sounds nice, it looks nice, it feels nice, but actually how effective it is, I have serious doubts about how effectiveness of regulation that is there possible globally. If you don't actually have more control on the actual technology creation, much more. The adoption bucket is much easier in many ways. So I think adoption today, a lot of the AI technology is available, a lot of people to use. Today LLM technology is quite accessible. Companies can use technology quite easily. So I think adoption is something which a lot of people can actually use technology effectively and perhaps include them in their own practices and governments and businesses and so on. And the key question adoption really becomes how quickly can you change to adopt and change the practices that you are actually, operating in so that you can leverage technology effectively. Let's take education as an example. I'm in one of the top universities in the world, and we are very proud at Oxford University about the way we deliver education, the tutorial system, the small group, tutoring, and that's something which has worked for centuries. Now, today, with technology, actually, what you can do is build avatars of professors who can actually engage in interactive discussion, interactive tutoring with students, and do it not just in the course time period, do it, in fact, potentially over a lifetime of a student. Actually keep track of the lifelong learning practices and the trends of students as they graduate from university, go into jobs, and so on. And today we don't do a good job at that. Now, the fact of the matter is that what will the educational model of universities like Oxford, like others, look like as we integrate these intelligent AI-based avatar technology into the mix with human professors and human tutors? That's an interesting question. We don't have the answer to what the future model look like, but we have to experiment and we have to try and have the courage to change. Now, will we have the courage to change, or in fact, will our cultural and other kinds of inertia factors basically hold us back? So on the adoption piece, what I think is the most important factor is the ability of organizations to change at a fast enough pace, the leadership in organizations to have the courage to experiment in new different possibilities that arise out here. So let me close my remarks by just summarizing the 2 points I wanted to make. The first point was really around inclusivity and equality. I think that's a very important point for us in the future. And my fear is that if it is not managed effectively, increasing spread of AI is going to increase inequality across the world. And you see today already, if you look at the last 20, 30 years, the GDP per capita, the income per capita in the US and Europe has diverged tremendously. I mean, the US is almost the double of Europe as a whole. And that has happened largely because US has applied technology much more effectively than Europe in general. So inclusivity, equality is one big concern. And the second big concern is around how do we, in fact, act globally on the three buckets of creation of technology, of adoption of technology, and regulation of technology, such that we're able to, in fact, use the power of AI effectively. So I look forward to hearing some of our expert speakers talk about these topics and other topics they'll bring on the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dutta. And now, let's hear from our first speaker, Mr. Jose Antonio Guridi. Mr. Guridi is an AI consultant for UNESCO, where he leads AI readiness assessment and provides policy advisory support for Chile, the Dominican Republic, and Cuba. With a strong background in engineering and public policy, he has held key advisory positions within the Chilean Ministry of Science, Technology, Knowledge, and Innovations, as well as the Ministry of Economy, Development, and Tourism. He's also the co-founder of Foresight Consulting, a consultancy firm focused on the future of technology and policy. Mr. Guridi, it would be a pleasure to have you on the stage with us right now.
Thank you for the kind presentation, and good morning, good night, depending on where you are. The fact that a lot of us are talking about regulation may not be that good if we're talking about the same things. So just as a context, and I think this is something that we can see in different places, AI that is hyping today is actually an opportunity and a risk at the same time. And dealing with AI means not only dealing with adoption and fostering it, but also in trying to assess the tensions between different values and actually manage to take advantage of some of the benefits, but at the same time, keep harm away. Here are two examples that I like to see that are not like the usual ones, but one of them is the environmental impact of AI. And it can be seen in different places. And it's something that before ChatGPT and all the foundational models, we didn't speak about this very much. It has become more popular in the last few years. But for instance, there's one research here that analyzed how AI could be great for healthcare and help, for instance, in radiology and make diagnosis much more precise and so on. So each time someone was trying to generate an image, like the two that I generated there, we were spending actually a lot of water, and in each iteration, we were impacting the environment. So we have to see how can we manage the tension between the opportunities that AI can offer and also the risks. And that's where AI governance comes in. But the thing is, and where I want to focus today is, we speak a lot about biases in AI, biases in the system, biases in the data, but sometimes we forget about biases in the governance discussion itself. And this is not biases in the data, it's biases on who is discussing this, who is making the decision, who is leading the discussion. This is a old paper now that shows where the discussion was in 2019. These were like where in the world were ethical principles about AI being published. And as you can see, it was mostly Europe and the US. So basically the global north. This is something that hasn't changed that much in 6 years, but there are some advancements, and I think I will highlight one of them as part of the Ethics Without Border, that is actually UNESCO's principle. But part of the inspiration actually of UNESCO's recommendation comes from the fact that this discussion was very concentrated in the North, and also that it was very dispersed. It was like you had different private sector companies doing their own principles, different governments proposing principles, and not necessarily they were matching until the OECD released their first set of principles that were like the first international principles. And then UNESCO kind of took them all and started regional discussions. And that was kind of something new, because it was, let's discuss these principles in the different regions of the world to see if they actually fit. And then the recommendation came up. And after that, the readiness assessment that was mentioned, and that it's being conducted in a lot of places in the world. One of the interesting things of it is that it started in the South. If you see the map, there's a map in UNESCO's webpage where you can see all the places where the ramps have been finished or where they are in processes, and they go south to north. Actually, most of the ramps that have been finished are in developing countries, not in developed countries. Actually, the first one that was finished was the ram in Chile, in which I was in charge of it. And we finished that. I remember there was one in Africa. So like the first few ramps were actually in the South. So that was like a way of how can we change the discussion about regulation and about governance, not only happening in like OECD or like very north developed countries, to actually the whole world, and how can we all discuss about governance. And why this is important? Because when we're in the South, how we discuss about governance and our own priorities are pretty different from the priorities and discussions that could happen in Europe, for instance. And when the professor mentioned, for instance, that we have like the AI Act as like the most comprehensive regulation and so on, and when you see, for instance, like the European discussion about the AI Act and before that the GDPR, you can see like this idea of the Brussels effect, like Europe leading the way in regulation. But many times when that happens, they forget about like the reality in the rest of the world, where our institutions are different, where we face different concerns, and copying those kind of regulations, that doesn't necessarily make sense. Some factors that we have in the South, and here I'm speaking from Latin America mostly, but I think we share many of them. It's like, for instance, we have different priorities in terms of socioeconomics. We have like higher levels of poverty. As the professor was talking about inequality is way bigger in our countries. So if we are multiplying inequality, it's even worse. We have large informal economies. Many times we're not able to measure, and this is something that happens with the RAMs. We're not able to measure what's happening because everything's informal. So how can we create evidence-based policy if we don't have evidence and we don't have the data? Then there's a huge problem in infrastructure. So we don't necessarily have connectivity. In Latin America, for instance, Chile is an exception. We have like an amazing connectivity because we're a very long country. So it's like we're lying. So we have one cable, and that can help us. And also for other reasons that I will talk a little later. But in the rest of the continent, for instance, connectivity is a huge issue, especially in rural areas. And it's not only connectivity; it's computing power, it's the ability to have, for instance, all the processors and the data centers and the computing hardware that, for instance, in trade war, not all the countries are necessarily able to access the hardware. And that doesn't happen in the developed countries. Our data ecosystem, like we don't have the same data. Our data has less quality usually. There are different types of biases. And in terms of capacity, since we have very limited resources, when we are designing policies, we have competing priorities. So creating an AI regulation or thinking about AI governance usually goes very down the list when you have security issues, when you have like poverty, when you have things that children that you need to take care of. So it's harder to think, even though it's very important, how can we develop governance? And also we have like a history in many of the Global South countries of colonial legacies and how we receive pressure from different parts of the world. And we don't necessarily have the power to negotiate as other countries have. And in that sense, if we think, how can we then think about global governance? It's hard to think of a one-size-fits-all governance or regulation. And usually what we have when we have these very universal frameworks, universal principle, is that they are universal for developed countries. And they usually fail to see how they can be adapted to the Global South and developing countries. And that can be seen, for instance, even in research. Like if we talk about fairness, if we talk about like different principles, they mean different things in developed and developing countries because our cultural values are different, our resources are different. And I really like this cartoon in which like autonomous vehicles are discussing what they should do, because in different countries we will have different care for the elderly. So if we are like more leaning toward like let's spare the young because they have more years to live, it's very different to let's spare the eldest because they have more experience and more knowledge. So if we just go and import things from other places, and ignore like local ethics and culture, it will end up worsening inequalities and it will also like strengthen dependencies from developed countries to the north. And that is something that it's as the professor was saying, when like this multiplicatory effect of technology, here we have like another example, like just like taking regulation from outside, it can also have like this multiplicatory effect in the dependency ties or in the inequality. So when we think about like this governance and regulation from a southern lens or a developing world lens, it's hard in the sense that it's like priorities are competing. And as the professor was saying, it's also very hard to think about governance where you're not creating. And I totally agree with that. It's like, if you're not creating the technology, how do you regulate that? But that also makes even more sense to think about when we think about regulation. Why, for instance, are we thinking in environmental impact regulation if we are not the ones creating nor holding the data centers? Or sometimes we can hold the data centers, but not the technology. So like those things actually have to be tailored to the regional and to the local reality. And in that sense, one thing that we as developed world should do is think about like the core ethical principles and how can we interpret those in our own culture and in our own reality. For instance, if we think about fairness, like what is the right definition and operationalization of fairness in our own context? If we think about transparency and accountability, how can we make it meaningful for the context we have and for the capacities we have? We have different levels of knowledge about AI and technology. We have different access to information. So how can we make system transparent and accountable in a world that is different? If we think about data governance, we have to address issues like sovereignty of data, or like different historical exploitation concerns with other countries, or the pressures of other countries in which we not necessarily can negotiate. So in the end, there's an extra challenge if we are discussing here and we are thinking, how can we interpret principles and create regulation from a developing world lens? But also, and here's like the hopefully positive side of my presentation, is that we also have very unique things in our countries. And I really believe that we can take advantage of the unique characteristics of our culture, of our territories, of our geography, to actually create our own versions of AI and our own versions of governance. And for me, that's the way of unlocking the actual potential of AI. Some examples here, for instance, is like the fact that we have like really informal economy, so that we have like some very like important sectors within our industry, like healthcare or agriculture or financial inclusion, and we have way more problems, also opens opportunities. And there are, for instance, a lot of examples on how like frontier innovations in fintech usually come from the developing world. Because in the developed world, they don't need the same security standards. They don't have the same problems. So we have to create new things. A lot of the like digital money comes from Asia or from Africa. A lot of things like micro lending or like a lot of like fintech solution for lending and for like analyzing risk and everything comes from South America. So it's like we have a lot of solutions because we have more problems. So now we are like actually those problems can become opportunities. Also, and that's why I include like those images, we have some unique geographical assets or cultural assets. And for example, in Chile, and this is where I'm from, so I know the example very well, we are actually the best country in the world to watch the stars for astronomy. We have like 80%, almost at 80%, like between 70 and 80% of the world's astronomical capacity installed in Chile, because we have a very dry desert. And we can say like why astronomy matters here, because astronomy is basically data, huge amounts of data. And actually Chile has leverage on astronomy to generate, for instance, to train data scientists. Chile, we have like one of the top three, I think it's like top 3 connectivity in the world, because we needed to connect the observatories, international observatories, to the city to then send the data to the rest of the world. So actually the observatories that are like billion-dollar projects came to Chile and had to create infrastructure because they needed the connectivity. So we had like very, very, very fast connectivity. And connecting to actually at the desert in the middle of nowhere. And then it can help like leveraging something that is unique as a desert to actually transfer that to industry. And if we think of AI, if we think of the images of the stars, they're not as different as satellite images. So actually algorithms using in astronomy could be transferred to, for instance, analyzing satellite images for agriculture, or actually there are examples on how algorithm calibrating observatories have been used in healthcare. So it's like basically images. So it's a way of thinking, how can we use our own uniqueness in our countries to actually create technology, but also govern technology. And the other small example is an initiative that is going on right now that is led by the Chilean National AI Center, but also with other Latin American countries, that is creating a large language model based in Latin America. It won't be as powerful as the leading models by Google or OpenAI or whoever, but actually here is like it will have more nuances about our language. And this is taking advantage of having a region in our case in which most of the countries speak Spanish. Except Brazil or some other small countries, most of us speak Spanish. So we can go and we can have like a unique data set and train our own model that have different biases, but not the biases that we see in the actual models here. So basically, we can think on how the unique things in our country can help us think about governance, but also how can help us like fill the create bucket that the professor mentioned. And approaching the end is one huge challenge here is that if we think only locally, then we will still be missing things because AI is international. So we have to think about coordination. And this is challenging when we have like asymmetries in power. But we will still have to think how can we coordinate like these very local regulations and governance to the actual global coordination of governance. And this is a funny example also on how, I don't know, an autonomous vehicle in Europe has to change laws if they don't coordinate. So if like you're going from Italy to Swiss, you have like more strict rule abiding mode. So in the end, and I think I'm in time, what I want to to say today is like we have to think how we can take advantage of the local uniqueness that we have in our countries, on how our priorities are different, and then we shouldn't be rushing to copy. I've seen a lot, and this is both in the RAM and other projects, how different countries are rushing to copy Europe in the AI Act. And we don't necessarily have the institutional capacity, or it doesn't necessarily fit our own countries, our own regulations, and our own culture. So my first message is like, we shouldn't be rushing to copy Europe. We should be thinking how actually we should regulate our own, if we should regulate, and how we should regulate. Maybe we don't need like a very general comprehensive law. Maybe we need like specific laws. Maybe we have a different way of regulating. Because also we have to think on how like this tension between AI risk and AI opportunity. And also we have our own existing institutions that look very different from like the coordinated European Union. So it's like, let's not rush. Let's think about our own institutional setting, our own capacities, and let's create governance, but also let's create technology using that as an advantage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guridi, for such valuable insights. And we'll now turn to our next speakers, Mr. Adya Danaditya, AI consultant for UNESCO. He contributes to the Ethical AI Readiness Assessment as part of the UNESCO AI Ethics Experts Without Border Network and has supported the deployment of the readiness assessment methodology in Indonesia, Laos, and other South Asian countries. Mr. Danaditya also served as the group product manager at the INA Digital Edu, where he develops digital solutions for Indonesia Ministry of Education. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage.
Hello. Thank you very much for the kind introductions. I hope you all can hear me. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are right now. I believe today I'd like to share some insights on the cultural challenges to AI adoption, focusing on two very different countries, Indonesia and Laos. This is based on my work that is supported by UNESCO in deploying the readiness assessment methodology. And I think this is very relevant in furthering the points that Professor Dutta shared earlier about inequality that may deepen into facets of AI and continued by Mr. Guridi just now. So to start, let's clarify what we're actually talking about. When we say cultural challenges to AI adoption, we're referring to like how AI, especially large language models, interacts with the attitudes, traditions, and ways of life of people in places like Indonesia and Laos. It's not about adoption of AI in the cultural settings. AI can help in cultural preservation, but we're not talking about that specifically. It's not the ways we can incorporate AI in cultural settings, but it's more about like how people contend culturally with AI. So to set the stage here, Indonesia is Southeast Asia's biggest digital economy. It's Southeast Asia also most populous nation. Laos, on the other hand, is one of the least populous and with a rather nascent digital economy. So there's contrast here. Yet, despite their economic differences, both face similar cultural barriers when it comes to AI. And the first one is language. Most AI tools, especially large language models like ChatGPT, work best in English. And I'm a lecturer also, so sometimes I try things such as this in in my interaction with LLMs, and I ask them to implement a binary tree in Python, and the results are very stark. If you do it in English, you have like full code with examples, all the features are there. In Indonesian, it's just partial with just short explanation. If you do it in Lao, it's just the basics. This isn't just about convenience, it reinforces inequality. Those fluent in English gain more from AI. And these has massive consequences. I paraphrased an IT industry leader in Laos during the UNESCO RAM deployment. He said that with AI, we can do with 6 developers things that were used to be done with 15 and get higher quality of work. But there's note here that we can't do it in the Lao language though, and they have to do it in English. They basically have to recruit engineers that have good English language command. this have massive consequences. For non-English users, like LLMs perform worse. There's more errors, more distortions. They cost more tokens to do, and they limit functionality in like real-world applications. ES 2024 index ranked Indonesia 80th in English proficiency, and Laos wasn't even ranked. So we're talking about a huge population being left behind here, just because they don't have a good command of English. And the second challenge, how AI represents cultures. When you ask AI to show Indonesian food, you get banana leaves, or like more recently, like pseudo Balinese dishes. While banana leaves are present in some parts of dishes, the last time I ate, I'm Indonesian by the way. Last time I ate something out of banana leaf is quite a while ago, and this is from someone who likes eating Indonesian. And this provides none of the reality of Indonesia's diverse culinary reality. And similarly, when in Laos, if you ask about Pi May, again the New Year festivities in Laos, the response is very minimal, especially when compared to detailed answers about, say, well, Thanksgiving in the U.S. So I think this is a good demonstration, a form of epistemic injustice, and this is especially worrying when young people turn to AI for knowledge. And well, we can see that maybe their knowledge is distorted now because they get it from AI, and it risks erasing or diluting local cultures. The third point that I'm going to share here is the impact on creative workers. In Indonesia, the creative economy employs like 15.9 million people. And at the same time, AI generated art is increasingly used in like public and political campaigns. We just elected our new president this October, and he used a lot of political campaign graphics using AI. And this triggers a lot of discussion on like how AI usage has triggered labor displacement fees along like graphic design workers. The hashtag Tolak Gambar AI, which is basically translates to reject AI generated images, even trended last year in Indonesia. Uh, and meanwhile, in Laos, most people work in informal jobs. This continues from the point that Mr. Guridi just made right now, uh, especially women. And the country sees creative industry as a pathway to formal employment in tourism, content creation, marketing, and things that supports that. But AI could block this transition if it replaces creative jobs before people can even access those jobs. I talked to one of the officials. One official even said, like, we wrote a book to protect our culture for being copied by other countries. Better data sets. We have to support local initiatives. Our colleagues in Southeast Asia have initiatives like Seacrowd. This creates nuanced ethical data sets. We have to develop multilingual benchmark and like consent protocols so we can get data sets ethically. Also, we support creative communities, digital content and repositories. We fund digitalization of folklore, traditions, oral histories, create some open access archives managed by cultural institutions reputable in the country, and we incentivize local creators via grants and competitions. We also ask the creatives to band together and create norm settings and promote the usage of AI as augmentation standards, not replacement, and the final product. And also, we advocate for creative attribution and IP protection for hybrid works. Uh, some years ago, we see the SAG after union advocacy in the US. This may be a way to build access coalition to shape ethical AI use for creative workers. And lastly, but most importantly, we have to build public literacy. Members of the public should know how to use AI critically. We have to launch AI literacy programs in native languages, use local media to educate about bias and ethical use. And lastly, embed AI and media literacy in curricula, well, some of which has been done in Indonesia and Laos right now. So I think that's my point. And to close, I think if we don't address these cultural challenges, AI will not be a tool for inclusion. It will become one of exclusion. And by building AI that respects language, tradition, and livelihoods, we should ensure a future that is both innovative and equitable. My name is Adya Danaditya, and thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Mr. Danaditya, for such a concise and insightful presentations. And now we are delighted to welcome our special guest, Associate Professor Phi Le Nguyen. She is the Acting Director of the Institute for AI Innovations and Societal Impact and an Associate Professor at the School of Information and Communications Technology, Hanoi University of Science and Technology. Associate Professor Nguyen, we look forward to your perspective.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vi, for kind introduction word. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. So let me share my screen first. So today I'd like to share with you about the story from our institute, the AI for Life Institute from Hanoi University of Science and Technology. So I was very impressive with the talk of Professor Dutta, and in his talk, so he mentioned about the equality and adaptation, equality for AI development between country, and how to adopt AI for the real problem. So in my talk today, so I will maybe it's very relevant with what mentioned in the talk of Professor Dutta. So okay, so first of all, so let me introduce about our university, Hanoi University of Science and Technology. So we are very proud to be the largest and the most well-known technical university in Vietnam. We have about 1,400 staff member, and with about 40,000 students. And we have 10 schools in the university and 6 research institutes. And the Institute for AI Innovation and Societal Impact, AI for Life, is one of the 6 institutes. And we have just established in June last year. And so why we established this institute? So that is, we want to boost the adoption of AI in other domains. So we do not limit the AI research in the information technology, but we want to integrate AI in other domains like life science, like environmental science, or education and semiconductor and smart system and so on. So our president board decided to establish the Institute for AI Innovation and Societal Impact. And we focus on 3 pillars, that is training, research, and technology transfer. And we have we are very proud to have a large pool of very talented students. So as you know that to research and applied AI, so we need very like powerful computing research, and we need a large data set, and we also need very like high skill human resources. But for developing country like Vietnam, so we lacked all of that. So it's very big issue when we want to research and develop AI in our country. And I have to say that is a very big struggle for us. And we may wait until like government have some policy to change and to solve the problem, or we have to do something to overcome that struggle by ourselves. So we chose the second one. And so, and we think about what is the most valuable asset. And we found that the most valuable asset of us is the very talented student. And then we focus on training and educating our students on AI. And we build very we build a process to select very talented students and train our students to become very talented human resource in AI in AI field. So you can see in this slide, so we continuously receive many applications from students in our university, but we only select very talented students, and all students passing the interview will be trained by senior student for 3 months. And after 3 months, our student will be trained on for the basic knowledge in AI. And then they will be join a deep training on very like high level knowledge on deep learning. And students who pass the second training step will join a specific topic, and they will be work with at least 2 supervisors. And students will work with us for 2 or 3 years, and they are very talented students. And I can say that our students are the most talented students in AI field in our university. And by such training process, so currently we have a very large pool of talented students with about 80 students on AI, and we cover on the topic of AI like computer vision and NLP, and also the theoretical AI. And so not only AI, we have a team to develop the web system and a smartphone application, and that help us to increase the like adaptation ability. So we have experts in environmental science, in education, and smart system, and so on. So putting all together, so we have a strong team across many domains and with many aspects. And with such a talented pool of students and experts, so now we have a very strong network with industrial partner, with government agencies, and also with many university and institute over the world. So you can see in this slide, so we are working with university in Australia, in America, and in Japan, in Singapore, and we're working with a company from Japan and in Vietnam, and also with government agencies. And from the industrial partners, so we have problem to solve the real problem, and we get funding from industry partner and from government agency. And from the academia partners, so we are very proud to have the collaboration with world-class AI expert who may be Vietnamese working in AI domain over the world, or foreign expert. Yeah, and they working very closely with us and help us to train our students. And yeah, so as I mentioned, so with a team of experts in many domains, and with students working in AI, and also with a team working on system. So we aim to like bring our research result to real product, and with each research result, so we always try to build POC system. So yeah, I will introduce some of our use case. For example, currently we are focused on 2 main big topics, that is AI in environmental and climate change, and AI in healthcare. So for AI in environmental and climate change, so we have like a group of solutions about air pollution, about greenhouse gas emission. So for example, for the air pollution, so we have a project that we implement IoT devices like this, and we put the devices on the top of buses, and when the buses travel around the world, so we can collect information about the air pollution, and then we visualize all the information in our web page. And all of these systems performed by our students, and this is a collaboration with 3 schools in our university, and an university in Japan, and industrial partner in Japan. And this project is funded by VinIF and has been nominated as one of excellent projects funded by VinIF. And it already finished in 2023 But yeah, you can see our POC system here. So we have a web page and we visualize all the information collected by the devices and visualize in the web page like this. And so after that project, so we do not stop, but we go a further step that we build another project to monitor the air pollution emission sources and analyze the impact of each emission sources on air pollution. And for this one, so we got the funding from VinUni, and we go with VinUni and with other schools in our university and with Hanoi City, and we build that system. And then we get another further step. So we try to leverage the AI and digital twin to solve the greenhouse gas emission problem. And we get fund from Assoc for innovation, and we work with an university in Australia, and we work with Thanh Hóa province. And yeah, so you know that Thanh Hóa province is a rural province, yeah. And I had to say that compared to other big university, big city like Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh, so the province like Thanh Hóa has very limited chance to to work with high level technology. So we bring this project to Thanh Hóa province, and we build a system. We build devices like this to monitor the greenhouse gas emission in agriculture, and we use AI and digital twin to guide farmer to perform the smart agriculture to reduce the greenhouse gas emission. Yeah, so you can see our POC system. Yeah. Yeah, so this is an ongoing project, and we do another project that we build a digital system to help the company, industrial company, to like generate the greenhouse gas report. And we use AI to forecast the greenhouse gas emission trend and recommend for the reduction plan. And we visualize all the statistics and analyze the data and generate the summary report. Yeah, and this project is in collaboration of our institute with the National Center of Quality Control. Yeah, and so for another topic, AI application in smart healthcare. So we have a very large network with many big hospitals in Vietnam, like a military hospital, Hanoi Medical University Hospital, or Bạch Mai Hospital, and also the rural hospital like Thanh Hóa Province Hospital and Điện Biên Province Hospital. And we work with academia in foreign countries like Japan and Australia and other industry like NVIDIA, and we solve many problems, the real problem in Vietnam, like how to generate the PT image from CT image, and early diagnosis, yeah, prediction, and like AI pathology. And most of our problem come from the hospital. Yeah, so we want to apply AI to solve the real problem in Vietnam. We not just want to do the research only, but we want to leverage AI to solve our problem. Yeah, so I can show you how we apply AI to make to help Vietnamese people to take care of their health better. So this project so motivated by the requirement from a very big hospital in Vietnam, and when we work with medical doctors, so they say that there are many types of medical images like CT scan or PET scan, and among them, so PET scan is very expensive and CT scan is cheap. But for the cancer diagnosis, so PET scan is required. And in addition, so PET scanner is very expensive and only like big hospital in big city have PET scan, and the hospital in rural province do not have PET scan. So it's very like a big burden for patient to take the PET scan, and they ask whether we can make some AI model that can translate from CT scan to PET scan. Yeah, and that there are many model to translate from an image to another image like this. Yeah, and they can work very well for natural images. But when we apply that model and we train on medical images, so it failed to translate from CT to PET. And we have to work with medical doctor and we analyze the characteristic of CT and PET image, and then we designed our own model, and then we train the model on the CT and PET images collected from Vietnamese hospital. And yeah, so we get very potential result that we can, for example, from this original CT image, then we can generate to this PET image. And you can see when we compare the image generated by our model with the ground truth PET image, so the error map is very small compared to other existing methods. Yeah, so that is why we have to to work deeply in the model to adopt AI solution in practice. Yeah. And for such result, so we also built a POC system that we built a web page, and medical doctor can upload their CT images and our model will generate the PET image. Yeah, and this is an ongoing project, and our working with doctor, and the next step will be to build a 3D PET image, and the doctor will try to use our generated PET image and make diagnosis, and then compare the result by using our PET image and the ground truth image and evaluate the medical impact of the solution. Yeah, so I will conclude my presentation here, and thank you very much for listening.
Many thanks, Associate Professor Nguyen, for your thoughtful contributions. And now, to wrap up our discussions, I would like to invite all of our panelists back to the stage for a brief 5 minutes reflections. This will be a 5-minute session where they can share any final concluding remarks before we move on to the Q&A sessions. Professor Soumitra Dutta, can you please start the panel reflection?
And in fact, I enjoyed the presentations tremendously. I think I found support for the perspectives that I was making in my comments. At the same time, I was very pleased to hear of the actual progress being made, whether it's in Vietnam, whether it's in Chile, or whether it's in Indonesia. I think there are challenges out here, but it's very good to see the research happening in these areas. I do think that we need to have more people getting more involved in technical AI research in countries outside those handful of countries that today are leading the frontier.
Following the professor, yeah, very good presentation. So I'm glad to see how things are happening in different countries. I just wanted to go back to some of the things I think we all kind of touch, but it's starting when the professor spoke about the different buckets. I think, yeah, it's good to see that the creators hopefully will move a little more, and it's like hopefully in the future will be not only 10 countries, and we can see other countries moving forward. And then touching back to again, try not to do that only by copying and imitating what it's being done, but also taking advantage of the opportunities we have in developing countries. And sometimes actually the gaps we have, such as inequality, informality, or other things, can be turned into opportunities because we have needs that don't exist in other places. Sometimes those needs are actually what can help us to develop new technologies. And that should be done thinking that governance and regulation shouldn't be just copying what's happening in developed worlds, but actually thinking about our own countries and realities. And I think that's something that should be very present when we discuss how we create, but also how we regulate.
Thank you, our panelists, for wonderful final remarks before we move on to the next part. And now, while they take a well-deserved 5 minutes break, we invite you to watch a short video tutorial on submitting nominations for the 6th season of the esteemed VinFuture Prize. Keep an eye out for the video, and we'll be back shortly.
Greetings from the VinFuture Prize. Please find instructions for the nominator following these steps. To begin, you can access the nomination portal at online.vinfutureprize.org/nomination, or you can scan the QR code you see on the screen right now to open the nomination webpage. On this webpage, you can download the instructions and the endorsement letter template. In the instructions, you will find the complete nomination form, where you can draft the nomination whenever you have time. Then, you can copy and paste the draft into the online portal. Please click on Sign Up, and upon successful registration, you can simply use your ID and password to log in. After login, please click Nominate Now to start a new nomination form. Subsequently, you can see 7 content tabs on the nomination form. To begin the nomination process, on the first tab, please select the prize category as well as the type of nominee, whether it is an individual nominee or a group of nominees. Then click the Start button to proceed to the second tab. And we would like to call your attention to tab number 5 and tab number 7. On tab number 5, your evaluation, you're invited to give your evaluation of the nominee's invention, including its groundbreaking discovery, scientific fundamental knowledge, specific approach, uniqueness, and advancement. Then you are required to clarify if the invention can be transferred to a product and highlight its most significant socioeconomic impacts. This includes the number of beneficiaries, such as people, countries, and continents. Additionally, please explain how you believe this invention has or will potentially transform the everyday lives of millions, if not billions, of people. Next, please provide information on the history of the invention, such as when and how it started, and who else, except the nominee or nominees, was involved in initiating or contributing to the invention. About tab number 7, supporting documentation and evidence. There are several important documents that the nomination portal and form require, and we would like to call your attention to 3 critical items. The first one is the CV of your nominee or the CVs of your group of nominees if you are nominating a group of people. The second important item is the endorsement letter. 3 endorsement letters or more are strongly encouraged, but 1 is mandatory. The third one is the additional form of nominees. Please be as specific as possible when providing the information. Additionally, you are strongly encouraged to include any valid intellectual properties, publications, patents, or other supporting documents that provide evidence for the nomination. Finally, after filling out and providing all the content in the 7 tabs, please click on the Submit button at the bottom of the page to submit your nomination. If you have any questions or you face any technical issues, please email us at secretariat@vinfutureprize.org. We will be more than happy to assist you in your nomination process. Thank you very much.
Before we move on to the Q&A sessions, I would like to share an important announcement from outside. The nomination portal for the 2025 award season has just recently closed. We sincerely thank all nominators for their incredible contributions. And looking ahead, the nominations for the 2026 season is now open. And now, wait no more, because it's time for the Q&A sessions. It's your chance to delve deeper with our esteemed panelists. Please feel free to actively participate using the raise hand function. And if you prefer a more indirect approach, simply type down your questions in the chat box and we will ensure they reach the most relevant panelists. So we are deeply encouraged by the vibrant engagement we have witnessed this far, evident by the significant volume of questions submitted to us. And among these very compelling inquiries, we have received questions from Mr. Onka Batra to Professor Soumitra Dutta. Professor Dutta, as AI technology transcends geographical boundaries and cultural contexts, how do we establish a universally acceptable ethical framework that respects local values while also maintaining global standards, especially in areas like surveillance, data privacy, and algorithmic bias?
I think you're raising a very important point, but I honestly do not think there's an easy answer out here. It is even today, forget about AI, we don't have common ethical standards that apply to all countries. I think one of the speakers gave the example of, how do you respect the elderly? How do you decide on the algorithms of a AV vehicle? What do you do? One of my colleagues, he used to often give an example when he used to teach executives, very multicultural executives. And he gave the example of you're sitting in a boat with your mother, daughter, and wife. And of course, you're a man in this example. So you're a man, you're on a boat with mother, daughter, and wife, and the boat has a problem. And you can only save one person. Whom will you save? Will you save your mother? Will you save your wife? Will you save your daughter? It's a very important ethical question, and different societies give different answers. That's the reality. So I don't think we can expect AI to come up with magically a common ethical framework that does all this magical equality and everything else. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there will be different standards. I think there will be different ethics. AI will either magnify it, AI will either help correct for it. And my sort of concern is that the countries creating the technology will in fact dominate the ethical standards that are applied in the technology. And that's the real concern that I have, that if you're not one of these handful of countries, and if you're just a user of technologies, will you in fact have the ability to control the ethical biases behind the technology? And you start seeing that today in social media itself, So social media has a lot of negative biases. A lot of countries complain about it, but the reality is they can't do much about it. And what can you do to actually force the hands of these large social media companies in the world? And so I think the world is imperfect. I think let's not hope for a perfect, magical, perfect world. But what we can try and do is let's try to use technology as effectively as possible so that we are able to get as many people benefiting from it as possible.
Thank you, Professor Dutta. And now we have received another question, sending to Associate Professor Phi Le Nguyen from our distinguished guest Luong from UNDP Vietnam. So, Associate Professor Nguyen, how do you suggest that LMC's countries like Vietnam can develop and apply AI in low resources setting, like, for example, lack of money, computations, and talent? And is it possible to develop sovereign AI with new models like DeepSeek that presumably don't require as much investment as leading commercial AI?
So thank you very much for the question. So I think that the last point that DeepSeek has not required much investment. I'm not sure it's correct. I think to research and develop AI, so we have to have finance support for computing resources, for building the large data set, and for human resources. Yeah, but for developing country like Vietnam, so yes, I know that we are lacking of such resources, and yeah, so we have to overcome that barrier by our own weight. And I think one of the way that we can somehow overcome that issue is to collaborate. Yeah, to collaborate with our partner. Like in our case, so we working with a partner in the foreign countries, and they may help us in computing resources. For example, they may help us to like run the model on their own computing resource. Yeah. So, but I think ultimately, if we want to develop AI in our country, so we need to investment. Yeah, we need to invest in developing AI. Yeah.
Thank you, Associate Professor Nguyen, for your very important sharing about the AI development in Vietnam. And now, to the next questions, I would like to invite Mr. Adya Danaditya. What lesson learned from UNESCO readiness assessment methodology in Southeast Asia could be applied to all the global South regions implementing similar AI readiness assessment?
Well, thank you for that question. As I prepared in my slide about Laos and Indonesia, given their contrast in like economic and digital development status, what I learned is there are more similarities that we would normally think of, and maybe there's a collaborative way to solve the readiness problems between nations, such as like how there's a regional coalition of researchers building a more inclusive data set in Southeast Asia. I think that's one thing. Yeah, as we know there are differences, but there are some things that are similar too, and I think there are solutions that we can work together. And that's one. The second one is that I think in all the countries that I've deployed RAM in, I see that I think we cannot rely on one specific stakeholder to ensure like optimum adoption of AI, say the government or the academia. So I think all the stakeholders with different backgrounds, different voices, different opinions, um, should start chipping in on like what kind of AI they want and what kind of AI adoption they want in the country. This diverse background and communication and collaboration between all these stakeholders are really, really key to be really ready for AI in the country setting. And I think that's what I learned during our deployments in the countries that I've been honored to help deploy around.
Thank you, Mr. Danaditya, for a really important lesson. And now, for the final questions before we end the sessions, I would like to invite Mr. Jose Antonio Guridi to answer this for our audience. Mr. Guridi, to what extent are Latin American governments using AI in public administrations or digital governance?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the country, but there's still not something that is systematic, and like all of the countries are using it for the same thing. Right now, it's like different cases in different governments. I've seen some exploration in public participation, for instance, so using it for analyzing processes, like large amount of qualitative data and so on. There are cases, for instance, in detecting patterns so that you can like create like more preventive policies. These are like very hard to do, and the ethical assessment is very important. But for instance, like detecting patterns to prevent harming children or violence in schools and those kind of things, and also like for efficiency and like supervising environmental law and everything. But there's still a lot to be done so that this is more systematic and there are actual guidance. Some initiatives that I think are very positive and other regions can learn from there is that there has been some efforts in creating repositories of algorithms used in the public sector. There's one in Chile, there's one in Colombia, in which they are actually like actively working with the government to have all the information about these algorithms published, and who is doing that, what are the audits that are being performed, and so on. So it's a way of increasing accountability and transparency that I think is very important when you use AI in the public sector.
Thank you, Mr. Guridi, and your wonderful answer have ended our highly anticipated Q&A sessions for today. And now, as we conclude this enlightening InnovaTalk webinar, I would like to extend a sincere gratitude to our wonderful panelists, Professor Soumitra Dutta, Mr. Jose Antonio Guridi, Mr. Adya Danaditya, and Associate Professor Phi Le Nguyen. Your perspective have offered valuable insights into the ethical and inclusive development of AI. We also wish to express our deep appreciations to UNESCO for the meaningful collaboration in co-hosting this important discussions. The commitment to advancing education, science, cultures, and communications continue to inspire global progress. And finally, of course, thank you to our wonderful audience for your participations and thoughtful engagement. We look forward to see you at our next event, and until then, best wishes to everyone.